Today, I'm going to show you how to make logic-based boldface questions super easy. I'm going to show you a strategy that works incredibly well, and we're going to do a really hard boldface question together, and you're not going to believe how fast you do it. And just for being here today, I have a free bonus for you. For now, I am offering my GRE Boot Camp for free. It's an intensive course designed to raise your GRE score 10 points in 2 weeks. It covers critical areas of the test along with hundreds of practice problems and quizzes, and is completely free. The link is right down there in the description. Okay, let's tackle those critical reasoning problems. So the strategy is very simple and very effective. First, pick out the conclusion, because we always pick out the conclusion. Next, the correct answer choice must get these 3 things right, so we check off each of these 3 things in order. First, the boldface sentence must either be a conclusion-y type statement or an evidence-y type statement. Those are your only 2 choices, so the test has to label each statement correctly. So go through all the answer choices and eliminate any that say an evidence-y type statement is a conclusion or a conclusion-y type statement is evidence. Usually this knocks out 2 to 3 answer choices. Next, see if the boldface sentences go in the same logical direction, like the first is evidence that supports the second sentence, or if the boldface sentences go in the opposite logical directions, like the first sentence is evidence that contradicts the second sentence. Also, check to see if the sentences support or contradict the conclusion. Eliminate any answer choices that gets the logical direction wrong, and at this point, you're usually left with just 1 answer standing and you're done. If they want to be really mean, then you have to go to a 3rd level and split hairs in the description word. Is it more of a conclusion or more of a prediction? Is it evidence or really an assumption? Usually they don't make you go to that level. Let's try a hard example, and using this method, you're going to cut right through it. Okay, so this is a bit too long to read out loud, so take a second, pause the video, read it to yourself, and then we'll jump in. Great. Okay, the first thing we always do is pick out the author's conclusion, and that looks to be that second boldface sentence. Now, if we were to put that into our own words, we get something like, if whiplash isn't covered, people don't report it, even if they've suffered from it, because they're not going to get any compensation anyway. Okay, great. Now we move on to the boldface sentences. Now, that first boldface sentence, that looks to be something evidence-y. And at first, it seems to support the commentator's conclusion, but ultimately, it supports the author's conclusion, which is the same thing as that second boldface sentence. Now, the second boldface sentence, that's the author's conclusion, which contradicts the commentator's conclusion, and this boldface sentence is actually supported by the first boldface sentence. All right, now we're set to go through the answer choices. First thing we look for, they have to label that first boldface sentence something evidence-y, and they have to label that second boldface sentence something conclusion-y. Let's see if they get that right. Well, A gets knocked out early. The first is not a claim. A claim is a conclusion-y type of thing, but we know the first boldface sentence is an evidence-y kind of thing. A is out. B gets knocked out for the very same reason. The first boldface is evidence-y, not conclusion-y. All right, B is out. Now C stays in for now. It calls the first boldface evidence, which it is, and the second boldface a conclusion. That's exactly right. D stays in as well. It calls the first boldface a finding. Well, that's an evidence-y kind of thing, so we're good with that. And it calls the second boldface a claim. That's a conclusion-y kind of thing. Perfect. E. Well, E is out. E calls the first boldface evidence. That's correct. But then it goes and calls the second boldface evidence as well. And it's not. It's a conclusion. So that means E is out. So we only have 2 answer choices still standing, C and D. Next, we check for logical direction. Let's take a look at C. Well, C is actually a problem. C says the first sentence provides evidence for a conclusion that the argument is supposed to further support. But the argument doesn't further support that first conclusion, that conclusion of the commentators. In fact, the argument goes on to say that that evidence in the first boldface does not warrant that conclusion. It literally says that, does not warrant the conclusion. Instead, the author provides a different conclusion. That different conclusion is the author's conclusion and the conclusion in the second boldface. So C is out. D gets it right. The evidence in the first boldface leads to a conclusion That's at issue. You bet it's at issue. The author doesn't agree with it. He flat out disagrees with it. The second boldface is a conclusion that goes against that first conclusion made by the commentators. So D is our correct choice. Now, this is a tricky question, but notice we got it down to 2 answer choices just by checking to see if they labeled the first sentence as something evidency and the second sentence something conclusion-y. All right, very nice work. So on any boldface question, they gotta get these 3 things right. They have to correctly label each sentence as either evidence or a conclusion, and they've got to get the logical direction right. At that point, you're usually down to the correct answer. Sometimes they can be mean and they can have you nitpick the specific label that they've attached to each sentence. The trick is to go through every answer choice first, checking to see if they get the evidence and conclusion labels right, then go through the remaining answer choices and check for logical direction. And again, if they're mean, you may have to go through the remaining answer choices one more time to see what you think about the specific label that they assigned to each sentence. Now, if you do this, what you're going to find is you're going to go very, very quickly and very, very confidently through these questions. Okay, great job. And remember, you can get the GRE Boot Camp completely free. The link right down there in the description. Great work. We'll see you next time.